Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to my channel. I wanted to make this video to give you a quick update on where I'm at with my medical school journey. So I actually just finished my third year of medical school yesterday. And yeah, it feels crazy. I mean, 3 years gone by just like that. I just finished my psychiatry rotation, which was 4 weeks long. And at the end of the rotation, we have an exam, and that was yesterday. So now I'm just spending this weekend recovering and relaxing, spending time with my family. My brother's in town, so that's been nice. But third year was crazy. I mean, for those of you who don't know already, at most medical schools, third year is when you do your core clinical clerkships, which are basically the rotations that almost every medical student does. So things like pediatrics, OBGYN, internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry, neurology, etc. So for me and my classmates, the situation got a little complicated because, if you turn back to the end of my second year, which is, like March or so of 2020, even at the end of my second year, things were already starting to get a little dicey in regards to COVID. So we had our last final exam for our last pre-clinical course. So for us, that was block 9. It's basically a cardiology, nephrology, and pulmonology block. And a few days before our exam, they actually told us that they were going to do the exam virtually just in case because of COVID. And this was prior to all the lockdowns and stuff. And that's when me and my classmates, our minds started going like, okay, maybe this COVID thing is going to end up being a bigger deal than we thought. So we took our block 9 exam online. And then I remember going out with my classmates and getting lunch and stuff after the exam, and that was like almost like the last time that we all hung out before things got crazy with COVID. But at the end of our second year, right, that's when we start studying for the major board exam that you take in med school, which is step 1 of the United States medical licensing exam. It's basically the first exam from a 3-part exam series in order to be able to obtain your United States medical license. So at most medical schools, you do 2 years of, classroom stuff, just learning everything. And then you study for step 1, and then you take step 1 before you start your third year, which is the year that you spend in the hospital, which is the year that I just finished. But for my class, our dedicated step 1 study period, which is basically an amount of time that the school gives you free from any schoolwork or classwork to focus solely for studying for step 1. Right around the beginning of our dedicated study period is when the COVID lockdown started. And as a result, the school made some pretty significant changes to their policies. First of all, they told us that, because of all the small business closures, there was the high likelihood that a lot of us were going to have to reschedule our exams because of the fact that the testing centers were going to be closed. So the school actually gave us the option of, basically taking step 1 anytime from then until the end of our third year, right? So a good chunk of my class decided, well, now is such an uncertain time that we're just going to take step 1 at the end of third year, right? So basically delay the exam a year, study for the exam while you're in the hospital going through all your rotations with the goal of taking it at the end of third year. And that's what I chose to do. I felt like it was a super uncertain time, with COVID. And, I just didn't really feel comfortable with the possibility of my exam date getting canceled. And, the possibility of, maybe having to continue studying into the beginning of third year while stressing out about having to find an exam date last minute. So in my head, I was like, you know what, like, let's just worry about step 1 at the end of third year. I can just study for it while I'm doing my third year, and that'll be fine. So basically that ended up being a little tougher than I imagined. For those of you who don't know, third year is a very busy year, right? You go from the pre-clinical curriculum where your time is basically yours, right? Especially at UCLA, we had optional lectures, very few mandatory activities, maybe 2 to 3 hours of mandatory activities a day, and the rest of the day is yours. So you get to schedule your studying whenever you want to study. You can watch the lectures whenever you want to watch them. And, you know, when you make the transition into third year, you basically lose that freedom, right? You know, at that point, you start to become a member of the actual treatment team. So, you know, you show up early for rounds, you do your work in the hospital, and the day is basically over when your team says it's over and that you can go home. So it's a pretty significant change. And I don't think I fully understood, you know, how little free time I was going to have as a third year, right? Of course, I remember the first week of third year, I was on my OBGYN rotation. And I remember coming home that Friday evening after the first week, just completely wiped out. I think I got home at like 6 or something. And then I went on my bed and I just knocked out for like 2 or 3 hours. I was so exhausted, right? Because it's such a big change, especially for me, right? I was part of the group of people who are delaying step 1, right? So I basically went from, you know, what was supposed to be a dedicated study period that basically turned out to be a little bit of a few weeks long vacation, doing nothing, into suddenly waking up super early, showing up at the hospital super early, and spending all this time in the hospital. You know, it was a pretty drastic change. So I was exhausted. But a few months into third year, you start to get the hang of it. My first rotation was OBGYN. It was a wonderful rotation. We did half of it online and half of it in person. And, you know, it was great. You had a great mix of seeing patients in clinic, seeing patients in the hospital, being in the operating room, doing a lot of surgery, and working in labor and delivery, where you're literally part of the team that's helping deliver babies. So that was pretty cool. But that was my first rotation. And looking back, it's probably a relatively tougher rotation to start with. But, you know, that was really fun. I loved it. After that, I did 3 weeks of pediatrics, which is exactly what you would expect. It's basically, you know, medicine involving children. And that was a week of seeing kids in clinic. It was a week of taking care of kids while they're admitted into the hospital. And it was a week of actually spending time with newborns in the nursery. And that was awesome. You know, and then I did 12 weeks of surgery, and my surgery schedule was, first 3 weeks was vascular surgery, and then 3 weeks of trauma surgery, 2 weeks of head and neck surgery, 2 weeks of urology, and 2 weeks of plastic surgery. And that was awesome. I mean, I love my surgery rotation. You really was very hands-on. I mean, I feel like I had a really good experience. I built a really good foundation on my vascular surgery rotation. That was at Cedars-Sinai. I met some really good mentors who were really able to help me, you know, figure out my role in the operating room as a medical student and doing whatever I can to help out the team. And then after surgery, I went into internal medicine. So at UCLA, internal medicine is 8 weeks. And internal medicine is really like where I felt like I truly began to understand the role of, you know, the treatment team in terms of how they take care of patients while they're in the hospital, because that's really what your internal medicine rotation is. You're taking care of patients while they're admitted in the hospital. You're managing their care, you know, day by day, you know, whether it's people who have like infections, people who are here for heart failure exacerbation or a COPD exacerbation. I did 4 weeks of internal medicine at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, which is a very specialized care center. So we had a lot of patients who had like lung transplants, kidney transplants, and the medicine got really complicated, but it was cool. And then after my internal medicine rotation, I did 4 weeks of ambulatory medicine, which is basically outpatient internal medicine, where you rotate through different specialty clinics. And actually, on my rotation, I was able to spend a week with the inpatient cardiology team doing things like seeing consults and basically seeing like what it's like to be on a consult service. And that was really cool. But after ambulatory medicine, I did 4 weeks of family medicine, which was awesome. I think, you know, I had a feeling I was going to enjoy my family medicine rotation, but it was really, really fun. I really just enjoyed the interaction with patients and really getting to know them on like a one-on-one basis and not feeling like, you know, super rushed to do all these other things. I really enjoyed having that one-on-one time with the patients. But after family medicine, I did 4 weeks of neurology, and now I just finished 4 weeks of psychiatry, and now we're here. But it's crazy how all that time flew by fast. I remember it like yesterday, the night before my first day on OB, and I was like, dude, what is tomorrow going to be like? I was like so anxious, but it was cool. I think the moral of the story is that time flies, but throughout all this time, I had this feeling looming over my head about, oh, I got to worry about step one. I'm taking step one at the end of third year. And that time is here. Right now I'm scheduled to take step one 5 weeks from now. So I'm basically just going to be studying all day, every day for the next 5 weeks. Because step one really is, what people would consider the most important test in medical school. Starting next year, step one is actually going to be pass fail. So I'm a part of the last year where you're actually going to get a grade for step one. And this is basically the test score that is one of the major determining factors of how competitive your residency application is. So it's kind of like the MCAT for residency. So you can imagine it's a pretty stressful time for a lot of medical students. And looking back, I do think I could have done a better job of studying for the exam kind of earlier on in third year. I didn't really sit down and start taking the studying seriously until January, which is still pretty early. But, I do think I could have started myself a little better if I started a little earlier and just took a little bit more time to study a little bit every day. But, to be honest, I feel pretty comfortable with where I'm at right now with the content and being able to answer the questions. So I think, I'm at this stage where I'm trying to just find that really good rhythm and pace that I can sustain every single day, while also making sure that I'm not getting burnt out, still able to work out, still able to spend time with my family and the people that I care about, and still able to get a good amount of sleep. So I think it's going to take a few days to kind of find the right pace. And I think, of course, things are going to start off slow. I'm just going to slowly titrate up the workload until I find a reasonable pace. But I'm excited, as a result of me taking some time at the end of third year to study for step one. I'm starting my fourth year 3 weeks later than everyone else. For a lot of medical students, the end of third year is really just a nice time to take a deep breath and relax and unwind. But I'm like in step one study mode right now. So that's my story of third year. That's where I'm at. I'll probably do a different video where I kind of talk about what I enjoyed about each rotation and my thoughts, my general thoughts of how third year was and how it relates to the first 2 years of med school. But I wanted to give you guys this video update and let you know where I'm at. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you found this enjoyable. Really looking forward to providing more updates about how my studying is going and how I'm getting ready to apply for residency. And like, subscribe, comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video or hear about what you've been up to in this past crazy COVID year. And looking forward to speaking with you soon. Cheers.